Nothing will keep us apart anymore, is there?
Boy, if you don't get...
Hey Internet, it's Jessica, and welcome back to Seduce Me to the Demon War, and we're finally on the final route that I will be doing, which is Diana's route. So, once again, I'm pretty excited for this because this is kind of like a new perspective on the story, since the other routes were basically the boys, and they essentially have all their stories connected in some way. And this time we're going with Diana, and she's not directly involved with the boys, except for with the Demon Lord and what happened with the family. So we're going to learn a little bit more about it, but also, I know we're pretty much, you know, dating her or whatever, romancing her, wooing her, whatever you want to say, but Saero's involved in this, since we all know he's in love with her, so I'm wondering how this is going to turn out. Anyway, before we get started, if you guys would like to check out the game yourself, there's a link in the description. And if you guys would like to support the creator and the voice of Diana, who is Michaela Laws, I'll have links to her stuff as well. If you can, please donate to her Patreon page so she can make more games. And if you would like to check out my Let's Plays for all the boys, I have done all the routes. There's a link to the playlist there for Seduce Me 1, 2, or even the episodes. Anyway, let's begin. Disclaimer.
This game was produced by Michaela Laws using the Ren'Py visual novel engine. We truly hope you enjoy this story.
Thanks, Michaela. Alright, so I assume this is before we take off into the night sky where we disappear into the demon world during her route Seduce Me 1. I was in love with a succubus. It was true. I had fallen in love for the charms of a succubus and was about to drive headfirst into the demon world with her to save her kingdom. Can I be honest? I don't know if it's like, maybe it's just Diana's succubus powers, but like, to say that you're in love with a succubus, so, like, nothing really happened. Can I be honest? With the other boys, like, they developed, like, some sort of friendship first and then they fell in love with each other. Like, that made sense to me because there was some context in it. But with Diana, it was just kind of like, I'll teach you everything. I love you now. By the way, I killed your grandfather. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Do you have any regrets?
None. I smiled as Diana held me in her arms and carried us both through the night sky. We had shared a sweet kiss, the first of hopefully many in the future, and we're about to cast a spell to enter the demon world. Diana looked to the ground that was far below us and pointed to her free hand down towards it, closing her eyes.
Revetara tenebras, lirato locum, pater portas.
As the last words left her mouth, a large purple pentagram appeared in the grass, before twisting and becoming a black void. I gripped onto Diana, scared at what I was seeing.
Last chance.
I gulped at the sight, not sure what to make of this. Was this really what I wanted to do? Also having the fact that we're just like straight up leaving our family and friends without any context to them, you know? Because the boys like, hey, we're getting married, like it makes sense that you would go off with them. That's fine, but I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm analyzing this way too hard critically, I don't know. My curiosity, however, guided my decision and forced me to take a deep breath. I closed my eyes and let the calm wash over me before looking up at Diana. Let's go. Diana smiled and wrapped both her arms around me, laying a protective hand over my head.
Hang on.
I tightened my grip on Diana, obeying her command. As I held tight, I felt the air quickly begin to rush past our bodies as Diana tilted back and began to let us fall towards the ground. Was she insane? I looked at Diana, seeing her smirk at me before closing my eyes. I did the same, naturally preparing for the impact with the ground. What I felt was a cool rush of energy brushing through my skin, as if I fell into water. I slowly opened my eyes and found myself into the vast dark space, holding on to a woman who was no longer wearing clothes. Oh yeah, she's like completely naked now. I was clinging to the woman who had no clothing, but instead had purple marks across her skin and horns adorning her head. However, I could tell that this woman was still Diana, just by looking at her eyes. Diana smiled and kissed my forehead before tightening her hold on me and muttering softly,
Ad Lilith castra.
I held onto her body as I felt us begin to move through space. As if a giant fan had pushed us forward. Onward we continued through the darkness, with me unsure where we were going and Diana guiding the way. It began to slow and soon a small light appeared, slowly growing as we got closer to it. I had shut my eyes and began to consume us. I felt weightless. I couldn't feel anything except for the woman in my arms, and felt somehow exquisite. I wanted to drown in this feeling, become lost in it. However, our journey through the light was coming to an end. The light fades around us, and soon I found myself lying on Diana as she lays on the stone floor. The air, however, smelled of fire and blood. Oh no! I looked up, seeing fire everywhere in the sight. What the hell? This is the demon world?
It's there!
Oh no! Oh god! A loud shout forced me to look over to see a man running at me with a spear and a rage-filled expression. I screamed and rolled off of Diana, scooting away to avoid being skewered. As he continued towards me, I screamed, "No!" I looked up to see Diana kneeling in front of me and gripping the man's spear, pointing it away from her. The man stared wide at Diana as she glared back.
My lady, you live?
Of course I do. I told you I would return, and thus I have.
Yeah, you dumb bitch. The man gave a small sigh of relief, lowering his weapon and propping it up to lean against it. As I examined him now, he wasn't gunning for me. He was wounded and exhausted, panting heavily and gripping his spear tightly.
I'm so glad.
As he finally toppled over, Diana gasped and rushed over, kneeling beside him.
Saero!
I rushed over as well, wanting to see what was going on. Who was he? Why did he attack me? And why was the room on fire?
Saero,
yeah, someone's
what
gonna
happened?
talk about that?
We were attacked by the Demon Lord. He took advantage of your absence.
What a jackass. I began to cough violently. We needed to get out of this room, wherever we were. Diana, we need to get out of here! Diana nodded and grabbed my hand and Saero's, chanting under her breath. The room around us began to shift, as if it was changing instead of moving us. Soon we were outside the castle, staring at the flames erupted from each window. What is happening? Diana's face was pure shock, staring at the castle in absolute horror. All of the color, besides the purple marks on her skin, had faded pale white in horror.
We drove them back, but the flames are too powerful.
At that moment, something in Diana's eyes changed. Her anger sparked as she stood, quickly walking around us and towards the castle. Diana!
Come! I command thee, white winds! Crush these fires beneath your hands!
Whoa, what? I stared at the wind as the air began to pick up and a purple glow began to surround Diana's body. It was like a storm rushing towards us, but there was no rain or thunder, just wind. The winds forced the flames to dance in the windows and the smoke began to rise from each one, signaling that the death of the fires. The windows continued to be filled with air and wind, most likely to kill the flames deep within the walls. I, however, could only stare at Diana. Her body was rigid and her gaze was intently focused on the stone castle. As soon as the winds died out and all that was left was smoke rising from the windows into the dark purple and black sky.
You did it. How?
Diana looked at Saero, intensely still embedded in her eyes. I think just because she's determined to, save her home.
Where are the king and queen?
I heard Saero's breath hitch, and I turned to look at him. He had a look of pure pain and guilt. What happened? Diana walked over and stared down at him, almost glaring daggers at him as she clenched her fists at her sides.
Speak, Saero!
The imp demons. While we were fighting the flames in the army, the imp demons snuck through our defenses.
What? The imp demons killed the parents? That's bullshit. My heart, despite not fully understanding the situation, began to tighten. Something was incredibly wrong. Saero shut his eyes as a pair of demons I assumed to be allies rushed over and began casting magic over his body, closing his wounds.
They snuck into their room.
Diana suddenly turned and bolted towards the castle, causing me to jump up. Diana! I began to sprint after her, following her inside the castle, trying to keep up with her. Her panic breath kept me following in her direction, despite her fast twists and turns through the ashy corridors.
No.
Oh no! I could hear Diana sobbing, praying as she ran. I did my best to keep up, not wanting to lose her and not wanting to hear her be alone right now. We turned a long hallway and had a pair of golden doors at the end. They were unscathed, as if the flames had not disturbed the door, or perhaps the room behind it.
Please be alive. Please!
Diana bolted for the doors and began to pull them open, grunting at the weight. I stopped running, skating forward for the abrupt stop. Whomever she wanted alive, I hoped that they were as well. As the doors finally opened, however, the foul stench of blood erupted from behind them, the scent filling my nostrils. As Diana flung the doors open, I could only stare in the sight we both saw. Blood. Blood covered the floor, the walls, the ceiling. The entire room was painted in gore, skin, bone, and massive amounts of blood. Oh god! Only 3 things, barely coated in red, stood in the middle of the room on the ground. 2 broken crowns and a small tiara that was barely large enough to fit a newborn's head.
No.
Diana slowly walked into the room, the blood in the ground painting her bare feet, as she fell to her knees in front of the items, staring down at them. I couldn't bring myself to enter the room with her. I watched as she lifted them to her chest, curling her shoulders over herself and shaking violently.
Father. Mother.
Oh, this is awful.
Odebel.
As she continued to grieve over the ornaments in her hands, a dark, almost deadly, and evil-looking aura surrounded her body. It began to flicker and grow, like a dark flame that wanted to engulf the room she knelt in. As it reached an apex and began to violently flicker through the room around her, Diana arched her back and screamed to the ceiling, her voice heavily laced with magic, pain, and rage.
I'll kill
Oh fuck, and she will, because Diana will get revenge. Watching her body burn to intensity black and purple flame like energy made my heart stop in fear. I had never seen her like this. I was scared to ask where her anger would drive her next. Oh no, what do I do? This is the problem with this route. Like, because, like, I know we know Diana through the stories of, you know, the other boys and whatever. But for me personally, it was easier to decide what decisions I needed to make with certain routes. Example, Eric and Damien were the ones that I knew the best because of how well I connected with the characters, or how well I could read into, like, what the characters would react to the choices that I would make. With Diana, it's difficult. I don't know how to explain it. She's very difficult to decide for because she's kind of the person who doesn't say exactly what she means, if that makes any sense. At least that's how I perceive her to be. So, I think I need to watch in silence. I don't know. I kept my distance, giving her space to mourn and grieve. She had lost 3 people very close to her, and she came back to the Castle in Flames. She needed space and time. I waited until she finished, curling into herself and whimpering hoarsely. Diana.
Let's just go.
Diana and I left the room with her unable to turn around and look back. We walked through the ashy corridors of the castle. Diana silenced by the sight of her own grief. My heart was heavy for her. Still, the demon lord who had done this was still a threat at large, and who knew when he would return. Diana led the way to the room, which, as expected, was burnt as it could be. However, Diana waved her hand through the air, casting some sort of silent spell. The ashen suit of the room vanished, and the furniture and decor were repaired. We last stepped inside with Diana slowly laying down on the bed, unable to carry on any further. Looking at Diana's face, her eyes were puffy and red, and her skin almost becoming void of any color beyond the taint of her demon marks. If she wasn't breathing, one would assume that she was dead. Diana stared at the ceiling, a world of emotion swimming in her eyes. Despite what happened, at least she spoke.
I need to send you back.
What? Now is not the time to think about me, and I knew it. Besides, I came here for a reason. I wasn't going back without knowing that Diana needed support. I had no regrets in coming here, and it would help her through this. No, Diana.
It's too dangerous here.
I don't care, Diana. Diana sat up slowly and looked at me, a form of weak anger in her eyes. However, she knew that it was fruitless. It was fruitless to argue with me. After all, she made a deal with me, and I could see the obligation to obey buried deep in her anger. Diana closed her eyes and lowered her head.
The demon lord will most likely return.
And we'll be ready for him. I gently took Diana's hand and lifted her chin so that she would look at me. The anger that was plaguing her melted into sadness and broken hope as she stared back into my gaze. There were remnants of rogue tears adorning her face, and seeing her so scared made me frown. I knew that we would get through this. We just need to rest now. We could deal with the issues this world brought after.
My lady?
Oh god, this is so awkward. Diana and I turned our heads to see Saero by the door. I stepped away from Diana, giving her space. Behind him, multiple soldiers, servants, and other demons rushed into the hall, most likely to check on the issues and possibly try to fix the damage on the castle.
Yes, Saero?
Who is this human?
For a brief moment, I could see the disdain in his eyes as he looked at me. However, it only lasted a second as he looked to Diana, waiting for her to reply to him.
Saero, this is my guest. She came back with me too.
Diana looked at me, trying to find the words in my eyes. What was I to her? My curiosity bubbled as I awaited the completion of her answer.
She came to aid me in this war.
Okay, awkward, considering we're in love with Diana. This is kind of awkward. Just like, hey, Saero, my other boyfriend, she just came to help with the war.
But what of your fiancé? What of the other sons?
They are gone. They have disappeared into the human world, and I can no longer trace them. I have failed.
I wonder, is this version of the story not going to include the boys? I'm just curious. The guilt and grief in Diana's voice deepened, most likely reminding herself that she saw the result of failing moments ago. Saero, however, stepped up to Diana and kneeled in front of her, surprising me. What was he doing? He was a guard, first off. Why was he being bold enough to step to her?
You didn't fail, my lady. The demon lord attacked us despite giving us his word that he would wait for you to return. He broke his end of the agreement.
I know.
Staring at Diana and Saero, I could see that they had a very close and deep connection. Was Saero a friend, or was he something more? Well, I could recognize the emotions within Saero's eyes as he looked up at Diana. He looked to be in love with her, or at least had some form of ultimate care for his lady. Saero gently took one of Diana's hands and placed his lips upon it. Instantly, I could almost see energy flow from his body into hers from the kiss alone. Was this how energies transferred work when they weren't the giver or receiver? The color of Diana's skin returned as she let out a sigh, with her body relaxing at last. Saero, however, continued to keep his lips over his hand. Something in my gut irked me about him. Oh my god, we're so jealous. This is kind of funny. Let him continue. Clear your throat. I don't know if I should, like, let him, you know what I mean? Oh my god, I don't know what the right answer is here. Be like, bitch, that's my woman, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like, it's Saero, and I love Saero. I don't know what to do here. Okay, for the sake of Diana, since she's injured and I know he's healing her, I'll just let him continue. Saero was just giving Diana his energy. There was nothing wrong with that. Why would I get upset over it? I wouldn't. Besides, Diana needed energy to recover from her explosion of energy and from her quenching her fire on the castle. She used a lot of energy. Diana smiled at Saero and softly pulled her hand away from him, making him look up at her, not in surprise, but with a smile of his own.
Thank you, Saero.
It is my duty to serve you, my lady.
Saero stood and took a step back, looking at his mistress and me.
Do we plan to retaliate, my lady?
We will. I expect the Demon Lord will come for a second attack, not realizing that I have returned.
What can we do then? Diana looked to me, a small glimmer of fear in her eyes, but her resolve rekindled as she let the serious visage cover her expression.
I will meet him on the battlefield should he come again.
My lady, you've just returned.
That I have.
Yeah, well, she's not
But
gonna
the Demon
listen.
Lord will not care if he learns of my return. If anything, news of my return will spur him to attack sooner than later. I must be there and stop him.
Diana looked at Saero with a cold expression, making Saero stand up straight like the guard he was meant to be.
Tell everyone to mend their wounds and prepare for a second invasion tomorrow. I expect the Demon Lord will be ruthless enough to attack in the morning. Let everyone know as well that their princess has returned.
Saero nodded and turned to the door to do his job. Before he exited the room, however, Diana called out one last thing to him, which seemed to make him freeze.
And when you are done, please retire to my room. I will rest here for the night with my guest.
Oh no, this is so awkward. He's just like, hey, I'm just gonna hang out with her, not you.
As you wish, my lady.
Oh no. I heard a rumor that Saero was yandere. Is that true? Like, oh fuck. With that, Saero left and closed the door behind him. The way Saero answered Diana seemed forced, but I could understand why. After all, if he had feelings for her, I became an obstacle for him, and I was with her. That didn't stop me, however, from wondering where I stood with Diana. She was going to stay here with me? This was my room? Diana let out a sigh and moved into the bed to rest against the back of the wall of the bed.
Come, we must rest.
I nodded and walked over, laying beside her. However, instead of Diana laying down, she guided my head to rest on top of her lap. You're not going to sleep?
Demons don't sleep, dear. At least not in this world.
Why not?
Because if we shut our eyes for too long, then we open ourselves up for someone to take advantage of us, or kill us when we're not aware.
I gulped, now worried and frightened to sleep. Diana chuckled, however, and petted my head.
You can sleep, however. I will be resting, but my eyes will remain open.
Can you truly rest like that?
Demons and humans are different, dear. Demons can function for years without needing to rest, as long as they continually feed on energy. However, demons can rest to stop spending energy. Thus why we have beds.
It's like, you know, in Lord of the Rings when Gandalf was sleeping with his eyes open? It's kind of like that. My curiosity began to peck at me again, but my exhaustion took control over my body. As I felt my eyes gradually shut, I could hear Diana whisper.
I hope that you don't mind me taking your energy as you sleep.
I assume no. Before I let sleep consume me, I shook my head. It was alright. Diana needed as much energy as she could for whatever the Demon Lord had in mind. I felt almost a bit honored that she was taking energy from me, as odd as it was. At last, sleep consumed me. Despite what was happening around me, the world of sleep was peaceful and calm. For a moment, I could truly be at rest. At least for a moment.
My sweet Azair.
Huh? I looked around the darkness of my dream, trying to pin down the direction of Saero's voice. Why was he in my dream? There's no reason why he should have been there. The sound of footsteps echoed in my head, causing me to grip over it and look around frantically. What was happening? At last, a line in the darkness opened up and revealed it as the door opened. Opening it was Saero with a kind smile on his face, staring into the dark space. What? I looked at him, but he didn't seem to notice me as he stepped into the room and walked past me. I followed his walk and guessed at what he was walking towards. Oh no, he's yandere, isn't he? Oh no. I know this is a dream, but you know what I mean? Like, so far the dreams have become true, considering, like, those dreams of the beginning of each route has been, like, considered the bad endings. Oh no, is he yandere? Oh god. Now illuminated by the light, I looked to the sight of Diana in the jail cell, on her hands and knees, weak and frail as she stared at the one approaching her.
Saero, what is happening? Why am I...
Shh. Everything is just fine, my lady.
My heart stopped as I watched Saero kneel in front of Diana and slid his hand between the bars to lift her chin. Diana seemed to nuzzle his hand softly, unconsciously, making him chuckle.
Soon enough, I will destroy the Demon Lord and hand you the throne of the entire world. Everyone will bow to you as their queen and ruler.
Oh no.
As they rightfully should.
Saero, I don't understand.
You may not understand now, but you will in time.
He's like, I'm gonna
promise.
give you everything you always wanted, and then you'll love me now, right? Right? That's exactly what Saero's doing right now. Diana crawled closer to Saero, wrapping her hands around the bar to keep her up.
Where is she? What happened to the human?
For a moment, Saero stared at Diana, looking completely oblivious to what she meant. Hey, I'm right here! Despite knowing that what I was seeing was a dream, I instinctively called out to Diana, hoping that she would see me regardless. To my displeasure, she didn't.
Who are you talking about, my queen?
You know who, Saero. She...
Saero silenced Diana by gripping her chin hard, making her gasp and stare up at him in shock.
My lady, I don't know who you are talking about.
Oh my god! Diana whimpered in his hold in fright. Fear painted Diana's expression as Saero pressed his forehead against the bars to stare deep into her eyes. I felt myself rush at Saero to try to grab him, but my hands really phased through his body like I was a ghost.
My lady, you must stay here for now.
Why?
Diana's single word died out as she stared into Saero's eyes. Something in her eyes began to shift from red to gold. However, her black pupils slowly morphed into glowing black crosses. Oh yeah, that's right. Oh, I don't know if people watching this know about Saero. If you haven't seen the other roots about, Saero's past and whatever. What's Saero doing?
Because I have not yet finished the Demon Lord, my love.
My love? Why would the sudden change in name? I could only watch as Saero lean back with a grin.
Once I've finished this war, then you may come out and fulfill your destiny, with only me at your side.
Okay, staring at Diana, I watched as she began to shed tears, but they were not clear as water. They were but black as oil. On her chest, a black burnt shape of a cross appeared, glowing with some sort of dark aura.
May those useless memories burn away.
What?
Remember only the one who
Oh,
has
that's
served
right.
you his
Never mind.
entire life.
he's erasing her memories. Saero! My words were futile, but I couldn't stand there in silence. However, as Diana's tears began to stop, the stains on her cheek drying along with her skin, Saero stared into Diana's eyes, burning his gaze into them.
Now, do you remember the human?
Who?
No, it couldn't be. The burn on her chest flashed bright white aura before settling down, revealing the permanence that had over her skin. It was a real scar on her flesh, no longer a figment of magic. Saero smiled lovingly at Diana before guiding her head towards and leaning in for a kiss between the bars. Diana closed her eyes and practically moaned against his lips, most likely feeling some sort of energy from it. However, Saero pulled away and gently made Diana pant slightly in need. Was she that desperate for energy now?
Never mind, my love. Forget I said anything.
Oh my god. Saero ran his fingers over Diana's cheek, causing Diana to shudder at the touch, and let out a pleasured sigh.
Now rest. Nothing will harm you in here.
Diana nodded slowly before laying down on her side and letting her body slowly shift into slumber. With another chuckle, Saero stood and turned around.
That human's life for a stone destiny. A perfect trade, if I do say so myself.
Wait, what? Hang on one second. That the Stone Destiny thing was like in James's route, where I don't know who set the Stone Destiny for James. I think people were suspecting it was like his mother or something, but like, who the fuck? What would? Okay, I don't fucking know. We're gonna find out anyway. The secret's out. Fucking Saero's an angel. If you didn't fucking know that. Oh my god. I snarled and rushed at him, but wound up running through his body and falling to the floor. Saero walked back towards the open door and stood by it, looking back at Diana with an almost evil-looking smile.
Nothing will keep us apart anymore, Isaiah.
Boy, if you don't get...
I jumped up and ran to him, but as soon as I stepped through the closed door, I found myself shooting out of my bed and sitting up, panting. Ugh!
What? What's wrong?
I looked over to see Diana sitting in the same spot as she was when I fell asleep, staring at me with wide, concerning eyes. There was no marker on her chest and no crosses in her eyes, which made me feel somewhat relieved. I looked around, trying to see if Saero was in the room, but he was nowhere to be found.
Are you alright?
I mean, let's just fucking tell her. I mean, I like Saero, but like, if he's totally yandere, that's kind of concerning. I had to tell her about the dream. I turned to her and took her hands, making Diana gasp and stare at me even more confused shock. I had a dream last night. Saero locked you in some sort of jail cell and wiped your memories of me. I couldn't do anything and...
Wait, stop. What?
Diana took one of her hands from mine and placed it on my head. Did she seriously not believe me? I glared as she stared at her hand. It's true!
I believe you, but I want to see it for myself.
You can do that? I stared at her, now realizing that she was taking energy from me, from my forehead. Diana closed her eyes and remained silent for a moment. How would she react? As she pulled her hand away, she smiled at me.
It was a nightmare, dear. I'm sorry you had it. But I can assure you, no magic like what you saw exists, nor would Saero ever do that to me.
Are you sure? Okay. I stared as I could see a genuine feeling behind her words, but something in my gut wouldn't let this go. How could she be so sure that magic like that didn't exist? What if Saero was a terrible person? Okay, Saero's not a terrible person, okay? From what we've seen in all the roots of all the boys and the stories so far, Saero's not bad. But I think, like, either maybe the angels could do something, or the demon lord, or just something could influence Saero to go insane like that. It's possible. But he's not a bad person. But what if...
Saero has been with me ever since I was a child. I would know if he was a bad person. There's nothing to...
Suddenly, the door of the room burst open, causing Diana and I to separate and stare at the intruder. It was a soldier who seemed to be a runner for the army, judging by his outfit.
Princess, the demon lord approaches!
Oh shit, Diana was right. The demon lord was going to show up today. I looked to the far window to see the sun barely over the oddly colored purple sky. It was morning, as Diana expected. Diana quickly threw her legs over the sides of the bed and stood up, pointing to the guard.
Tell every able-bodied soldier to head for the gates. I will be there shortly.
Yes, your highness!
The soldier ran out, following by a handful of soldiers that either accompanied him or were heading to the same direction. I looked to Diana, surprised to see her ready. How much energy did she take last night? As I got the good look at her, something about her seemed to have changed, but I couldn't put my finger on it.
I have to thank you, you know.
Huh? For what? Diana turned to look at me with a smile. As she did, I could see the faint layer of purple energy surrounding her form, and her eyes completely gold.
You gave me a large amount of energy last night.
You're welcome! Her voice echoed through the room, making me internally shudder. She sounded almost ethereal with the power behind her voice, almost drowning my senses. It was as if she was no longer a simple mortal, but a goddess. How much energy did she consume last night? As the energy and glow in her eyes faded away, Diana smiled. Diana gently took my hand and rushed me out of the room, guiding me out of the castle. Around us, servants and soldiers rushed in the direction or another.
I need you there beside me when I face him. You won't be hurt, I promise.
Unless he curses us! I followed step by step, nodding in reply. I felt a bit honored that she wanted me to be with her, but I shook off the excitement, knowing that what I was walking towards. The demon lord was approaching, and we would be face to face with it. Diana led me through the castle or grounds onto the battlements, overseeing the distance between the kingdom. With a large line of creatures lined up and outlined on the horizon, I felt my heart stop as the smallest figure stood between them and us. The taller than any man I have ever witnessed was a man I was meeting for the first time, the Demon Lord. The mere sight of him sent fear down my spine, but this was the man who hurt Diana, so he was my enemy.
City of Lilith, rejoice! You will fall before the sun reaches its peak!
Diana released my hand and stepped between the embrasures of the wall and walked through the air towards the ground like she was descending for an invisible staircase. As she did, I jumped at the sound of the soldier onto the ground, pointing their weapons towards an incoming army. Diana's voice bellowed in the air, causing the line of creatures to step back in fear. As her feet touched the ground, the air seemed to pulse with energy. However, the Demon Lord stepped forward with a dark grin.
Succubus! You have returned. You have failed to bring my sons home, it seems.
The Demon Lord laughed at whatever Diana had shouted, making me worried for Diana. Would she be okay on her own? She stepped forward with a couple of feet before pointing her palms towards the ground. The hell is she doing? Yo, whoa, hey! Before my eyes, on Diana's back where the mark of adorning her skin began to dance with the weave before drenching themselves from her body and forming two large demonic wings. They flapped against the air in unison, causing a large gust of wind to push forward.
Soldiers of Lilith, come to my side if you wish to shed my enemy's blood!
Yeah! As Diana spoke, the soldiers who had gathered from the front rushed forward and stood in two lines at Diana's side, pointing their weapons at the Demon Lord and its army. In number, Diana and her soldiers were outmatched 10 or 20-fold. However, something told me that the battle would be Diana's favor. At my sides, a large line of archers positioned themselves to aim at the army, ready to fire on command.
Steady, men!
I looked to the side to see Saero walking down the line with his hand raised, waiting for a signal. However, the sight of him made me remember how he was in my nightmare. Could he be that evil as he was then?
Patro Verdis! Asti trovevo mi Mika!
From Diana, a large thick tendril with a gigantic mouth began to quickly spout and spill a magic circle floating above her chest, sliding down her body and down towards the ground. I recognized the shape of the mouth from when Diana first met, when she dangled me over it before letting me make a deal with her. Oh, that's right. Soon the tendril released itself from Diana's body and took physical form with purple and black scales. Her head formed to where it was, convulsing with a new moment as a wicked purple tongue lashed from its newly formed mouth. A giant 100-foot snake, oh dear, now stood between the Demon Lord's army and Diana's army. It hissed at the creatures in front of the line and quickly began to slither forward in hunger. I didn't get a chance to watch it attack. I turned back to Diana to see her lift off from the ground and form a purple saber in her hand, lifting above her head.
For the pride of Lilith! To battle!
Yeah! At her last words, Diana flew forward and slashed through the air, causing a large purple arc to shoot out of her saber and strike Diana at the section of the Demon Lord's front line. I watched as both armies charged forward towards each other and began to clash their swords. Beside me, a rain of purple arrows flew from the battlements down towards the incoming section of the Demon Lord's army, causing me to duck in case of return fire. To my surprising glee, the Demon Lord's army couldn't push Diana or her army back. They held their position and cut down every enemy that came at them. The Demon Lord, watching instead of fighting, glared as Diana flew through the air, cutting down the sections of the army with ease. The snake that Diana had summoned was dealing with major damage to the army as well, carving through the lines of devouring handfuls at a time. Each time it did, it either got bigger or became much more menacing. I could barely take it all in. The battle was merciless, seamlessly endless. Diana's army was small, but a strong moral, cutting through the Demon Lord men with ease. The archers beside me continued to rain arrows on the incoming soldiers, hoping to nickel and dime their numbers on the ground troops. I was glad that Diana wanted me there, but I knew that I wasn't ready to fight in the war, so I kept crouched to watch the battle safely. Eventually, Diana's army began to push back, forcing the enemy soldiers to either retreat or try to regain ground. Diana, however, decided it was time to deal with the real threat and swoop towards the Demon Lord. Both demons arched their weapons to each other, Diana with her saber and the Demon Lord with a giant sword, and clashed steel. As they did, purple flames and red lightnings spasmed from the impact and pressed against each other in battle of strength. The Demon Lord looked so much bigger than Diana, but somehow Diana matched the strength and did not budge in the parry.
How? You cannot be this strong!
I think because it's mixed with she wants revenge, and at the same time we gave her a lot of energy. And also Saero kind of helped too.
You know nothing of true strength!
Some of the battling around the duel stopped just from the sheer sight of Diana matching the Demon Lord's power.
I am the Princess of Lilith.
Yeah.
I will defy your will and save this world from your tyranny once and for all!
A collective gasp echoed through the air as Diana somehow managed to push against the Demon Lord, forcing him to step back and parry. Diana was doing it. She was defeating him. The Demon Lord slid his sword and parried and swung around again at Diana, making her block but to fail to push her back. He repeated the attack twice, 3 times, but continued to be pushed back each time. The soldiers around them took moral inspiration and fought with tenfolds, forcing the Demon Lord's army back over the arching horizon. Diana and the Demon Lord, however, continued to slash their swords, beating steel to steel. As the Demon Lord finally jumped back, he formed a large ball of red lightning in his hands, shooting it towards Diana like a flash of thunder. The attack impacted, sending Diana flying back, but with her wings. Diana managed to flip back to the face of the Demon Lord with ease. In retaliation, Diana formed a spiraling set of purple fireballs above her head and chucked them at the Demon Lord. With the glare, the Demon Lord slashed through each ball, forcing them to dissolve into the air.
Isaiah!
Diana glared hard at the reply before flying back at her opponent, slashing through the air with her saber. From there, it became a battle of blades and close-range magic attacks. Neither side would give in, and no soldier dared to step in, afraid of being the victim of one of their attacks. Yeah, I wouldn't do that either. The duel became blurred and by the sheer speed passing between them, frantic and powered at once. It was slightly dizzying. Finally, the two slid away from each other. Diana was intact, breathing heavily from exerting so much energy, and the Demon Lord was weaponless. Adjusting my eyes, I could see that it was no longer carrying a weapon and was gripping his arms tightly to stop some of the wound from bleeding out.
How could this happen?
How could this happen to me? Diana didn't respond. She flew forward and engaged him again, but stopped as the Demon Lord's body became overcome with red lightning. As the lightning had ended him, the Demon Lord's body vanished.
I will return.
Running like a little
Your
bitch, as
kingdom
always.
will fall.
His voice echoed through the air, haunting everyone and making the trees around us bend and sway as it might. However, as the voice died out, the army of the Demon Lord was left behind vanished as well. It took a moment to take in. We had won the battle. We fought and drove the Demon Lord and his army out of the kingdom. We did it! Quickly, the soldiers and Diana's cheered huzzas for their victory. Diana's snake vanished at last as Diana herself began to slowly fly back towards me. I was grinning ear to ear as she slid between the embrasures to me. However, I did not expect Diana's eyes to roll to the back of her head for her to collapse against me. I wrapped my arms around her and Diana indeed fainted in my arms. Diana!
Isaiah!
Oh no. I collapsed onto my knees with Diana in my arms. Saero rushed over and dropped to his knees beside us, taking one of Diana's hands. Diana, however, didn't react as even energy was being flown from Saero to Diana's hand. Ooh, shit, you're gonna make me, like, straight up kiss Diana right in front of Saero. He's straight up gonna, like, punch me. Oh no, I'm gonna kiss her though. Like, I don't know, I need to save. Yo, this is so hella awkward. What do I do? Like, I kiss her, and then someone's gonna be like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Alright, let's see what's gonna happen. She needed energy to recover, and I had to help. I gently took her head in my hands and kissed her, letting her unconsciously take my energy. I could feel warmth slowly come back to Diana's skin as we kissed, making me slightly smile. Diana's free hand gently slid up between our bodies and cupped itself over the side of my neck. If Diana was awake now, she enjoyed the kiss that we were sharing and wasn't going to let go just yet. Oh, so awkward. I could feel my nerves dance and energy slip away into Diana's lips. Before long, Diana disconnected that flow, pulling away, slightly looking up at me. Diana slowly lifted herself up to her feet. Instinctively, Saero and I both grabbed onto Diana's arms, helping her up. She looked both at us with a kind smile.
Thank you.
I couldn't tell which of us she was thanking, but I accepted it with a smile of my own. You did it, Diana. You drove him back. Okay, guys, I'm gonna end the episode here. Sorry about that, but that was interesting. Let's just say it like that. I don't know how I was supposed to choose the options here because I'm trying not to piss off Saero. Because, like, I'm not saying, like, okay, it's obvious that Mika's in love with Diana, but I can tell that Diana isn't. She's in love with Saero, but she likes Mika. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what to do in this situation. Oh my god. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed this episode of Seduce Me, remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to join the companions. And if you'd like to help support the channel on Patreon, there's a link in the description for my Patreon page. You get early access to videos for Patreon only, the Discord server to come talk to me, and a bunch of other cool stuff. Or if you'd like to check out my store, that's another way you can help support the channel. This has been interesting so far. I mean, the whole Saero yandere thing is pretty much confirmed, right, with that nightmare. Even though it's technically not true, but I could totally tell that Saero is very jealous. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye! What? What? While his finger sees the edges of my... I widened my legs in anticipation, and he